What's up, guys? It's your host Spartanic Arts DXD back with another high school DXD related video. Today we have What If Issei Was Abandoned Part 19. Thank you so much for the support on this series, but it's absolutely amazing. If you guys want to know exactly when I upload / my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button to become a limit breaker or a balance breaker. We have seen so many balance breakers and limit breakers in the premieres and just in general. It's been absolutely amazing. I think I'm up to 57 channel members now. We broke 50 channel members so quickly. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, bro. If you guys want to subscribe to my other channels, and Popowski and Fallen DXD, I'm thinking about being Fallen DXD, either talking about other anime or playing games of anime, or doing both on that channel, or making a gaming channel and make Fallen DXD a talk about anime channel, and then as well, and Popowski is my Dragon Ball channel main. So thank you so much for the support. It's been absolutely amazing. Tell me, guys, tell me your thoughts on that, of course. What If Issei Had Ultra Instinct is building up to be really cool. I'm writing it right now. Once again, it's super duper cool, so thank you for that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and thank our balance breakers. Rob the King, Lachlan Yates, Atomic Warlord 58, Seth Voiles, Ant Lewis, The Beast YT3, Colex, Joe Baldwin, Russell Getchell Jr., Madara Uchiha, Refik 135, Keep Saying 21, Blue Lightning, Sinrar Q, Xdatapat T Gaming, VR with hashtag 2347, Sanitates, Stephen Cruz, ZKey 2000, The J-Boys, The PS_Gamer, The PS Gamer, Xor X108, Mr. Wolf, Jordan Patchow, Mazaku, Dr. MLG is the bomb, Asimodus, Grimfire Shot Gamer, That Round Guy, Zero Fusion, Soresponder, Nick May 98, God Say Why, and Chaotic Raven. Thank you so much for becoming a balance breaker, which is the highest membership tier. Thank you so much for the support. And without further ado, let's go ahead and roll into part 19 of What If Issei Was Abandoned. We are currently right in the middle of chapter 9. The buildings at both of their sides looked like houses of courts much older and not advanced at all. Engravings with either drawings or what they thought of as writing could be seen all over the walls and in all of the houses. The place didn't look old, but the style of architecture as well as the location itself looked like it felt ancient. More so than many ruins in the world. Admiring the golden scenery, Erica slowly turned around and looked right behind her. She saw something that they were looking for. The bull! Her words were loud enough for the rest of them to hear. They quickly turned around and saw a big bull against the stone wall. Right behind them, as if it was man-made, the bull almost looked chiseled against the wall. But some parts of it proved that it was natural. Its fur was filled with golden flowers on its eyes. There were big red gems. Its teeth were made out of all stone, but they actually looked sharp enough to pierce through flesh. Even the horns looked the same. "Where are we?" Fuki asked, to no one in particular, but contrary to everyone's expectations, a voice was heard answering her question. "That I do not know." They turned and looked at the origin of the voice, ready for anything. However, they only saw Issei, who was leaning against a nearby golden pillar and was smirking at them. Issei saw their faces and actually held back a small laugh. He saw them descend and thought about something to make a good entrance. Nothing like the good old cool pose of leaning against something while looking uninterested. He mentally thanked all of those moments with either Azazel or Volley. But the expressions that were written on their faces were rather interesting. Erica and Fuki looked at him with similar but different expressions. Erica looked amazed, and a slight blush could be seen on her cheeks, and she turned her head away from not wanting to keep eye contact for long. Meanwhile, Fuki looked at him with almost hearts on her eyes. That look scared Issei slightly. However, he played it smooth and just ignored it. Beham and Jesper looked shocked and startled respectively, and their mouths were open, and both of them looked ridiculous, but he already guessed why. After all, they saw him jump off a risk twice, just to only appear before them as if nothing happened. "I think we should look around the place and find out exactly where we are," Issei's words brought everyone out of their daydreaming. "I agree," Baham nodded in his head and started to look around. Then he proposed, "How about my son and I check the surrounding buildings and you check at the center?" Beham knew that this place was far from normal thanks to that fact that there were some magic cast all over the ancient city. The barrier was proof of it. He knew that if anyone touched, they would become dust in the wind. So he thought about searching the not so dangerous or obvious places that Golden City had. He then pointed at the tallest building, a golden pyramid-like structure that dwarfed everything near. He then said, "You should go there. Something must be at the top. Meanwhile, both of my son will look around this place. If we find anything, we'll tell you." Jasper was about to say something, but seeing the glare in his father's eyes directed at him, and he stopped himself from doing it. He just stayed silent. The look in his father's eyes really scared him. Never has he ever seen his father like that. Then so be it. Issei agreed with him, but he didn't let Biham plot go unnoticed. He then decided to ignore it, since it wouldn't harm them at all. He knew that even if they had found anything at the best, should be at the center, but being cautious like that was something he could respect. He stopped leaning against the pillar and started to walk away towards the center of the Golden City. His hands were in his pockets, both of his eyes never left the majestic building ahead. Fuki and Erika also discovered the little human's plot, but ignored it as well. Fuki scoffed at them and walked towards Issei, not sparing a glance at all. Erika just walked after her, repulsion written on her face. After seeing them reach the center of the city, Biham signed and talked to his son. Well, we need to get as much as we can from the outside buildings. It's better if we hurry. Although the place looked safe, Biham was feeling unsure. His gut told him to hurry, so he just told his son and started moving towards a nearby building. Jesper just stood there, unmoving, but soon after he thought the same as his father and went to the other side of the house his father was in. Right now, he just wanted to get as much as possible before anything happened. Erika and Fuki caught up with Issei, and the three of them walked closer, edification at the center. It was a pyramid-like building that is top and had a square building that looked empty. Maybe it was a religious center. The whole surface of the building was golden. However, some red and blue gemstones were encased in some of the engravings. Black tiles similar to obsidian also scabbed all over the place. Maybe to change the looks of the building a little. Issei was silent. He just kept thinking about exactly what this place was. Those drawings, portrait mini stories, different stories, and those symbols. I've seen them before, but where? He started to walk up to the golden slabs that were like a staircase. Fuki and Erika were really cautious. Both of them were at his sides, just keeping looking around for anything. After some time, they reached the top. They saw the other square-like edification in front of them. The sun was shining ahead of them, so the whole building seemed to be gleaming and sparkling with extravagant light. The structure was just an open space, with many pillars supporting a flat ceiling, and no walls could be seen, just a ceiling engraving all over it. "Stay near me, and don't drop your guard," Issei ordered them. He didn't want them to be separated, at least not until he figures out if the place was actually safe or not. The woman silently nodded and went closer to him. Fuki took advantage of the situation and hugged his left arm in between her breasts. Erika just stood really close to him, touching Issei's arm with her own. Seeing this, Issei sighed in defeat and walked towards the center of the little building. After crossing what he thought to be an entrance, he took notice of the small pedestal at the center of the room. It was small, not more than a meter in height, and golden in color. However, its engravings were far more skill and detail than the ones he saw before. They looked lifelike, as if it was a moving picture. The image at the front of the man dressed in expensive antique robes. He was holding a really odd sword that didn't have an edge. It looked almost like a club. The image seemed to be constantly moving after. His dominant arm made a swing with endless blade. After that, a huge gale could be seen coming from the sword, erasing everything in its path. Shocked by this, the three of them kept their eyes on the pedestal, then walked around analyzing everything of it. Issei looked at the backside of the pedestal and once again was amazed. He saw a woman standing at the top of the mountain. She looked angered. She seemed to have horrendous amounts of powers concentrated on her fist. As the image moved, she crushed the mountain with her own fist. The engraving seemed to be moving again, and the mountain, when struck, turned into particles of dust. Then the woman was arrogantly on top of the remains of the same mountain, probably displaying her deed. "What is this?" Erika mouthed as she looked at the images in front of the back of the pedestal. "A story," Issei answered the question, not completely sure. Both of the women looked at themselves and at him. Their eyes demanded an explanation, at least part of one. A fragment, you could say, he explained, and looked at the pedestal itself. Really intrigued by this, after looking around the pedestal, he saw the top of it. Nothing was there. The top was completely smooth and clean. But his instinct as a dragon that found a treasure screamed at him there was something there, and really valuable. Carving his hand in darkness, he reached on top of the pedestal, as if grabbing something. Soon after, his suspicions were proven right. He grabbed something, and a brilliant golden light filled their vision, blinding them momentarily. Scene change. Location unknown. After the light died down, the three of them finally opened their eyes. However, the scenery was not what they expected. They were now inside a huge golden room with many colossal pillars at its sides. There were no windows, but rather holes in the sides of the walls, showing an ever-changing colorful sky. One Issei unfortunately recognized. The same engravings from the buildings could be seen on the surface of the pillars, but no images were seen. Instead, many symbols, which they could guess to be some kind of writing, covered the surface. Well, seems we're no longer in the same place. Stating the obvious, Erika said to herself. Indeed, Fuki seemed to be liking this and just agreed with her words, still not letting go of Issei's arm. Issei looked around the place, only saw a staircase in front of them, clearly going to be much higher level than the one they were at. This writing, if I'm not wrong, his thoughts were interrupted by Erika. Issei, what's that on your hand? She asked while seeing a golden piece in his right hand. Issei looked at surprised and took a turn to look at his right hand. He was grabbing something, but he wasn't exactly sure what it was. It was rather big and golden in color, though a tint of black could be seen on its surface. However, it looked really out of place. What is this? He asked Drake while looking at the golden contraption in his right hand. Not even I know what that is, partner, Drake told Issei while feeling curious about the object. In his hand was a thick golden tube that extended a foot into the air. It looked like mini puzzle pieces stacked on top of each other and was moving at random intervals like some kind of mechanism. The object kept shining a golden light and kept moving, never stopping. Seeing the complex artifact, Issei took a closer look. What are you exactly? His interest piqued. He looked at the artifact and just started to inspect this thing. He saw some red light inside the whole tube, and the complexity of its making could put anything into modern to shame. Issei felt this object was rather important, and energy he felt from it was dense and ancient. Issei, we should get going, Erika told him while shaking his shoulder, trying to dispel his thoughts. Issei widened his eyes and nodded. He was too distracted by this little thing. He decided to keep the object in his hands in case anything inside the place could react to it. After all, they needed to know more about this thing, and their only clue was this place. Walking onwards, they reached the golden staircase. While looking around, they noticed nothing, aside from the precious gemstones and golds, was conformed to this entire place. Looking up, they saw the pillars extended towards the sky for hundreds of meters. Soon losing them of their sight, there was no ceiling and only a weird fog was present on top of them, covering the roof of the palace. They walked up the stairs for what felt like hours, but no one ever said anything. Each of them was prepared for a fight, and distraction would prove fatal. Seeing the end of the stairs, Issei looked at Erika and just communicated with his eyes. She immediately understood what he meant. Be ready. She nodded her head and looked at Fuki, who also understood what was happening. Reaching the top, they saw some kind of throne. It was elevated off the ground and some obsidian slabs could be seen below it. The throne, as always, was made out of gold, but its surface was completely smooth and shiny. Stopping as they just reached the end of the stairs, the three of them were actually shocked, not because of the throne, but rather who was sitting on it. It was a woman that had her eyes closed while leaning her head against the right of her hand. Her legs were crossed on top of another, and she gave the impression of being extremely bored, but her presence, now that was something else. They all felt a really thick aura coming off the woman in question. It was a dense and thick intense, dangerous. Drake and Issei knew exactly this aura perfectly well. After all, they have been in this type of existence before, in more than one occasion. Partner, Drake mentally talked to his partner, but was abruptly stopped by Issei. I know. He felt his body tense before he quickly activated his darkness in case of anything, hiding the artifact in his hand just in case. Erika and Fuki, similar to Issei, knew what was in front of them, so they both prepared themselves. Erika used her deceased dragon portrait and a huge shallow sword in the ground below her, painting it in pitch black. Fuki covered herself with dense, thick, white layer of toki and used her senjutsu to form a series of hexagons that spun on her left wrist. Then Issei talked while being cautious. Goddess. At those words, the woman opened her eyes and stared directly at him. Dragon? Her voice was sweet and seemed to be melody echoed all over the place. Even Issei felt goosebumps when he heard that voice filled with interest in something else, something bad. No. No simple goddess, partner. Be careful. She's not someone you can mess with. Hearing his partner's advice, Issei agreed. Goddess, would you please tell us how did you get out of here? Or how to get out of here, he then said again. He cut to the chase and asked while looking into the eyes of the goddess. She looked at him and smirked. Slowly, with an almost hypertonic movement, she stood up from her throne. She descended down to the obsidian slabs beneath her with grace and elegance. In one solid ground, she walked closer to him, disregarding the woman at his sides. When she was 3 meters away, she stopped and talked to him. And why would I do that? She cynically placed a finger against her cheek. Issei was silent. Instead of talking, he just looked at the goddess, analyzing her completely. He had to admit, she was beautiful enough to compete for the title of Goddess of Beauty. Her black hair reached her waist and seemed to be as dark as the abyss itself. It cascaded down her back and seemed glossy, soft to touch. Her skin was as white as an alabaster and smooth as jade. Not an imperfection could be seen. Her eyes were bright dark yellow as if the molten gold, and they glowed with a powerful light that was filled with authority. She was quite small, almost a head smaller than Issei, but her proportions with that height were just perfect. She wasn't filled to the brim, but rather she was filled with just a perfect amount to make any male that laid eyes on her body completely infatuated with her for a lifetime. She wrote 7 places of clothing that were mixed with armor, 2 of them covered with her most precious parts, but the left no room for imagination. Her right leg was covered with black stocking, with golden-like armor and royal blue metal pieces that contrasted with the person. Her left arm had a long black sleeve that reached her bicep, and just above it, also same elegant pattern and armor as her leg. As her 5th piece, she had a dark golden crown that seemingly tied her hair into a pair of twin tails both sides of her face, excluding grace and authority. Her sixth piece was a necklace with a red jewel at the center, landing right on her cleavage, instincting to look closer. Her 7th piece, if it could be considered that, was a cape that extended from her waist to her ankles. It was black and with gold pieces of gold armor around it, and seemed to be worthy of the entire country. Issei kept staring at her, analyzing all of her emotions and movements, but was soon stopped when he heard a voice again. "Do you like what you see?" She moved her body in a seductive way. The melodic voice was heard yet again, but this time far worse. "Beautiful indeed, but you haven't answered my question." He seemed unfazed by her beauty, and cold voice even made her feel a slight chill. She tilted her head and played dumb, making Issei slightly angry. "Goddess, answer." He made his voice colder and walked closer to her. She turned around and walked at a random direction while hiding the smirk on her face. "Interesting, young dragon. Not being affected by my beauty at all. I feel kind of insulted." She then stopped walking and answered the question. "This is my realm." She waved her hand around. "Darling, be welcomed." She clearly was teasing him. Her movements irradiated a sex appeal that would make everyone her slave. Erika and Fuki were kind of worried, but seeing the stoic face of Issei managed to calm them down. "Realm?" he asked back, but her response was teasing flick or her finger and a smile on her face. "Of course, I made all of this to spend in the eternity." Her smile was astounding, and a teasing voice that begged for someone to do more was difficult to ignore. "From the simple pebble to a huge throne behind me, even the city which you came from was made by me." Her pride in those words was obvious. "Why did you do all of this?" he asked himself. He was almost sure of the identity of the goddess, but he needed more information. "I see. Then why did you do it? Do you really have free time when your pantheon might need you?" He made a dangerous question, but he soon got his answer. The goddess frowned momentarily, but soon changed her expression to a flirty one again. However, that change was caught by Issei. Soon he reached a conclusion, and if he was right, then everything will change. If her identity was really her, then everyone across the supernatural globe will go mad. "Darling doesn't need to worry about that. They have everything under control." She smiled at him. Her answer was perfect. However, Issei was no normal being. Seeing her answer like that made him smile with coldness. He then decided to make another bold move. It was all or nothing. "I see. Then they wouldn't care if I take this with me." He showed her the golden artifact he had with him. When he first reached the throne, he decided to hide it by covering it with his aura. So his hand and her eyes should only look like a huge black claw. Seeing the artifact, the face of the goddess finally changed for good. "You're also after the riches and treasures in this land?" She grashed her teeth, her voice sharp and venomous. The look in her eyes was frightening. How about we talk, goddess? He felt confident. You give me the information I want, and I'll give you something in exchange. He smirked wickedly and played the golden artifact in his hand. What do you want, dragon? Her true persona was shown. A malicious, devil-like voice, an expression that seemed as if she wanted to gut him. She even lifted her guard and expelled a part of her aura, trying to intimidate them. Unfortunately, these three were not normal supernatural beings. How do we get out of here? More than a question, it was an order. He knew where they were since they first appeared here. He could recognize that colorful sky at any thanks to his many experiments when he first tried his Hell Gate. He knew the dimensional gap quite well since those days, but because of that, he was quite nervous. This was quite a bad situation. He knew that the Yakuza no Makatama wouldn't work here. That thing wouldn't work in the gap. The reason, still unknown. Maybe it was related to Great Red, who knows. His Hellgate didn't work in sealed spaces, and definitely not a sealed realm created by a goddess. So reaching a conclusion, they were fucked. The goddess kept looking at him, her eyes constantly moving between his person and the golden artifact. Then she answered, "Unless I want you to, no one leaves this place." Her smile made them feel a chill down their backs. Even her voice sounded unnatural and bloodthirsty. "Open the gate, goddess." He frowned and expelled his aura, equaling the one she had. The entire place started to decrease in temperature, and some places even began to crack. "Why would I do that?" she teased him. No, she provoked him. Even her smile signified that. On the other hand, Issa was calm and collected. He then looked into her eyes and calmly said, "Because I'd rather not kill the last goddess of the extinct pantheon." His words made everyone widen their eyes. The three females looked at him in shock. However, this goddess looked frightened. Seeing her like that, Issei thought on counting his proving. Maybe he was really right. "I know your real name, goddess," he told her and started to explain. His voice sounded sharp as a knife. "I am the Starry Lady of Heaven. My power enlightens dusk and dawn, mountain and sky, furrow and seed, animal and human, woman and man, love and division, and war, always war." His words confused the woman at his sides, but the goddess looked shocked. "So I was right? Fuck, this isn't good," he thought, while the goddess was in silence. "Those are the words of the beginning of a certain story, a story about a goddess and her journey to the underworld." As if his words had physical strength, the goddess retreated a step. "But not to the darkness, not to the clay and dust, not to death, not to great land below, where my sister reigns. That land I did not know, so I abandoned known lands and traveled to the threshold and found the entrance and beat on that cold door. I banged on it until I was let in. Into that great place I descended, down through the gates, one by one," he quoted, while looking at the goddess, who seemed in shock. "I never expected to see someone from the pantheon which thought to be extinct." And the goddess was famous as she was strong. Issei wanted to unmask this goddess, who seemed to be fond of hiding her real identity. Erika and Fuki were in complete silence. They were amazed that Issei actually knew who they were facing. So they stood both of his sides and kept their eyes on the goddess, not losing her figure for a second. She, on the other hand, was furious. That was the last of her race, the last of the first gods. She, that lost her everything due to her foolishness and dumb pride. Every word the man in front of her made a wound on her heart, a wound that she knew she deserved. She always disliked her story because it showed what she once was, a spoiled goddess that lost her most important to her and didn't realize until it was too late. The greatest goddess of old, known as the mother goddess and the strongest female of her pantheon. Unknowingly, the palace started to creak, not because of his words, but rather because of his goddess in front of him. Clutching her hand into a fist, blood started to fall from her palm. She even gritted her teeth to stop from trembling. She knew she deserved it, but it hurt far too much. It hurt being reminded about the tragic past. "Stop!" Her voice was a murmur, but her words echoed all over the place. "Down I went, through the 7 gates, down to the realm of my sister. At the first gate, my queenship was stolen. At the second gate, my knowledge was taken. At the third gate, I lost my voice." His reciting was stopped by the goddess. "Stop!" she demanded, and looked at the man in question with a horrifying glare. Bang! Her golden aura started to circulate around her body, and the floor gave in. The quakes on the realm became even more noticeable than before. "Let us go, goddess. I know that if I give you this artifact, then you will kill us at the same moment." Issei wasn't dumb. thanks to all he lived through, he knew when someone wanted to kill him or not, and this goddess since the beginning was practically oozing killing intent. Even behind that smile, he knew everything was fake. After actually talking with her in those few exchanges of words, he discovered that if the goddess got what she wanted, she would have attacked with all of her might. She wanted to attack right after his talk about her pantheon, but he showed her the artifact. Actually, that was also a gamble. He didn't know if it actually worked, but for now, his only way was to talk about her past. Weirdly enough, it hurt her. So she either condenses or he will spill the beans. The goddess was angered. No, she was furious. The dragon came here, just like many did in the past, and wished to get her riches, her treasures, her memories of her people and her family, and now was blackmailing her to get out of her because he knew that only she could open the gate back to the human world? How did he figure all of this out? My story and my people were lost in the river of time. No one should know that much about us. Not even the faction chiefs of the modern world would know that much about me, she started to think. More so far a dragon. They don't care for anything other than themselves. Who exactly is he? The goddess knew about the dragon quite well, but never has she seen or heard about someone like him, taking human form, having other species accompanying him. Who was he? Partner, careful. This goddess wasn't exactly worshipped for her temper. I know that you want to provoke her to let you all go, but you need to be treading on thin ice. Be careful, Drake told his partner. I know, but unless I make her angry and force her to actually let us go, then she will just kill us. We're trapped in here and she's the only one with the key to the outside world. I count on her temper to actually either let us go or create an opening wide enough for me to mortally wound her if we actually fight her at her past. I see. So you want her emotions to take control of her and actually attack you, and at that moment you will hit her with everything you got, creating an opening for the woman to strike her down. The dragon understood what was actually surprised by the plan of his partner. Correct. Either she lets us go, or she will make a mistake, and I will take that opportunity, Issei smirked, making the goddess even angrier than before. Okay, partner. I'll be ready for the moment when it happens. However, be careful. You don't know how strong she is, and Legends explains about her strength. She's not someone even your team can take on at the moment, Drake told his partner, and started to prepare himself for the opportunity to come. I know, Dreg, but we need to risk it in order to gain. He cut communication with his partner and decided to continue his plan. At the 4th gate, I succeed my beauty. At the 5th gate, I gave my divinity. At the 6th gate, I offered myself. At the last gate, I left my life. And it falls away, and death comes. It continued provoking the goddess, who seemed extremely angry. Just a bit more, he thought. This is your last chance, goddess, or I will say everything, he screamed at her. No! I won't let you get away. I won't let you get away with what I treasure the most. Even if that once was the thing I hated the most. It's what's left my time as a true goddess, she screamed at him. Then so be it, goddess. It was your choice. He decided to continue his speech. Time passes and does not, and 2 strangers come to the queen, bearing water, but they ask her one thing, and that one thing is granted. So then loosed spirit is breathed back and bound into the which remains, and I am born to life once more. What did they give the queen, that she turned her ear to them? His words for her were ruthless. Tears formed on her eyes. No! Please don't! Please stop! Don't make me remember those days! She pleaded with tears starting down her face, but he only answered with the only thing she couldn't accept. Let us go, goddess, and everything will stop, he told her, feeling kind of bad to do this. They needed to escape this place, and the goddess truly didn't want to let them go. I can't. I won't. Not while you know about this place. Not while you know about me. Not while you have the artifact with you. Not while you have the key to the treasury, she screamed and wiped tears off of her face. Issei felt a twinge of remorse, but continued his words. This darkness knows the law which says that for one release there is one ransom. Those words made her look at him with horrible eyes, but the glare was never directed at him. It was weird. It was as if actually wanted him to continue, as if she wished for this, if she wished for him to tell her story all to present, especially to herself, as if she wished to be punished for something she did. but she never said a word of approval. She didn't hate the man. He was just doing what was necessary to get out alive, but she couldn't let them go. If he knows about this place and actually lets him go, more will come and destroy this place for their own greed. Her treasures collected over millennia will be stolen again, and she will be left without anything to remember them. The key in his hand was the last memory, the reminder of her past, the last memory of her time. She hated herself because of what she did in the past, and even at this moment she hadn't forgiven herself, so in a way, she was grateful that this man was doing this. Maybe after this, she would have finally paid for her crimes against her loved ones. Issei breathed and continued his story. There was no question, really. Who should it be? And down I send my husband and my steed. His words echoed in her head. He actually felt how her heart twisted and cracked at the memory. She closed her eyes and remembered that scene, that memory that hurt her till this day. Start the flashback. In her search of more power, in search of arrogance blinded by her pride, she went down below, to the place filled with death that her sister reigned. Arrogantly, she reached the main door, the first door, and threatened to bring it down if she was not let in. After all the threats she could think, she was let in by the gatekeeper, a young woman who wore nothing but rags. Yet the plot of the Queen of Hell already started. As a trick, she was told that due to custom said the god of heaven himself, every single traveler must lay a piece of jewelry or clothing at the gate. This was the plot, not knowing alongside the piece of clothing or jewelry, a part of her own self will also be left behind. So she accepted and her journey began. The first gate was crossed and alongside her crown she was stolen her queenship. Letting that behind, her mind was set free, no longer blinded by her arrogance, yet pride still remained. Soon she decided to continue her journey. At the second gate in front of her, cover was lost, and with that, her knowledge. Not knowing exactly why she came here in the first place, she thought only path was ahead, and she walked. After seeing things no mortal should see, and taking all death in this realm, her mind started to change, but she didn't notice. At the third gate, she left behind her stockings, with many treasures sealed into it, and with that, her voice was lost. Not capable of speech, she continued her journey, now laminating her choice of continuing. Yet, she could no longer stop. Seeing the great evils that plagued below, and earth all the torture and pain, she was mourning for the ones that were trapped here. She then reached the fourth gate, and she succeeded her beauty, and with that, her cape was lost. She closed in on the underworld, to the throne of the mighty queen, but now, being weaker than before, she felt different. While wailing on the long road filled with nothing but darkness, she thought about her life, about her deeds, all good and wrong, about her plays and tricks, about her so-called loves, about the many things she did. Reaching the fifth gate, she was stripped of her necklace, and with that, her strength left her. All of the power she held was proud of was now lost, not capable of fighting against anything nor anyone, not different from the low gods that governed, useless stuff in her eyes. Yes, just like her husband that she left on top of the earth. Shocked by this, her thoughts started to get even worse, feeling emotions she never experienced before, feeling guilt and regret. All that she used as toys, to all that she scoffed at and as she hurt. Reaching the sixth gate, she gave her soul sleeve, adorned with jewelry, and shined with the brilliance of thousand stars. And with that, her divinity was stolen. Not different from a mortal, she continued her journey, swearing to everything above the heavens that if she escaped, she would change for the good. But that proved to be an empty promise. The last steel gate was in front of her. Resigning herself, her fate crossed it, and her stolen piece of clothing was also left behind. With the last piece lost, her sense of self was taken, not being different from a corpse that held life, not different from a body held no mind. She was taken prisoner by her sister and ridiculed. As punishment, she was cursed to die a slow death, hit by 60 plagues that would make her suffer before taking her life. The gods, discovering that Earth was changing with her loss, sent a young being, not divine in nature, and a young man close to the goddess to take her back. The being was given the water of life as a gift to the Queen of Hell, but it was meant to be given to the fallen goddess. The other man acted as his companion and guide this long and tough journey. Reaching the end of their journey, journey, that being sprinkled the water onto the living corpse of the goddess. It was a success. The goddess returned to life, but without anything on her, just like before, her sense of self alone returned, and only that, no power, no beauty, no voice. Furious, the Queen of Hell demanded an explanation. Soon, she was told about the orders of heavens above. She understood, but she wanted something. She demanded a life for a life, that being proposed its own, but she was unsatisfied with it, saying that it was not the same, that a life of a god, of that of something not divine in any aspect, it wasn't equal at all, not having anything left to offer, being wanted to give up. But another person appeared. The companion revealed himself. The goddess, at the moment she saw him, started crying in bliss. Happiness filled her. Being at the words that came from his mouth made her sorrowful. The man announced himself as the husband of the goddess and proposed the life of a god for another. The queen was satisfied with this deal and accepted the proposal, yet the goddess was mourning, and sadness, despair filled her completely. She repeatedly asked why he did it. Why, after all she told him, after she cheated on him, after he cheated on him, and after all the horrible things she did to him, why he decided to give his own life for her own? The man smirked and explained, because I'm not the one that's supposed to be by your side. I, as your husband, shall love you, but you do not feel the same way as I. The reason for that is because although being a goddess of love, you haven't experienced love. That one will love you shall come in the moment. Don't give up. My time in this world of the living, as well as my journey, ends here, but yours has just started. The man went towards the woman of the underworld, not removing the smile on his face. The queen just touched his forehead and retrieved something from him, a little ball of light. The cold body dropped onto the ground of the goddess that came here was soon free to go. Tears fell from her face, regret and sorrow embedded onto them. That being, after many moons, talked about her grief and convinced her to start journey back up, and so she did. But not for a moment did she forget about the sacrifice at the words of her husband. Even after she retrieved all that was rightfully hers, the experience she gained from this changed her entirely, and she became like another goddess. Trying to pay all the wrong she did on earth, she did her job as a goddess and did it splendidly. But even time passed, yet for a day did she forget the words of her husband. End the flashback. The goddess was still standing and not moving, only crying at the remembrance of that memory, of the sin she committed. That's the story of this goddess, that due to her greed and her pride lost everything in her life. What happens afterward is not written in any record. This is what for a goddess to know, Issei told his companions. He then looked at the goddess that seemed to be awakened from her thoughts. She lasted long enough, but I still have something else. He looked at her without any mercy. He told her, I haven't said your name, goddess, he told her, while hoping for the best, but only silence answered him. Erika and Fuki were seeing all of this with some guilt written on their faces, but they also knew why he was doing this. He was doing this to save them, to live to see another day. Although it was bad, it was needed, evil. Fine, the executioner answered, continued his words. She's a goddess of beauty, good harvest, and war for Mesopotamian mythology, said to be the most pampered, or rather most beloved goddess by other deities. The goddess looked at him with a face that spelled dismay but also hope. Her Sumerian divine name is Inanna, and this name is actually an older one, a goddess of Venus, a goddess that rules over good harvest, which brings prosperity to the people, and also a goddess that rules over war and destruction, having even dispatched a fearsome divine beast called the Bull of Heavens to the city of Uruk. He was hoping for her to be angry, but either she hit it really well or she wasn't angry at him at all. Famous for having numerous loves, it has been said that she would make advances with all of her energy on those she took a liking to, regardless of those being human or other deities. On the other hand, she also displayed a demon-like cruelty towards those who did not bow to her will. He thought as his next words, but he decided to continue. Her Akkadian divine name is... He took a deep breath in and said the words that made the goddess accept her fate with a smile on her face. Ishtar, queen of the heavens, goddess of beauty, harvest, sex, love, and war, the strongest goddess of the Sumerian history, and called the strongest in all of heaven. The woman at his sides widened their eyes. That was the name they recognized. Erica heard from her before the Civil War started, but was only the story of how she unleashed the bull of heaven. Never would she have thought that she would be here, alive, and actually in front of her. Just to say this in the middle of the story, I actually read about her in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I cannot believe I'm actually learning something from school right now. Sorry, continuing. Fuki was shocked. She did hear of her, but never of her story. Never would she have ever thought it was actually that bad. No wonder she didn't want to hear it. After all, it was pretty bad, but for the goddess of her caliber to actually have a past like that was rather unsettling. The goddess, now named Ishtar, looked at the man in front of her and actually felt different from before. Even if it hurts like crazy, she felt how she could actually forgive herself for what she did in the past. She felt free. How did you know? That was her question. Only thing she wished to know. I had my suspicions since before entering the city, but I never would have thought that you were here. After all, on the outside world, everyone thinks everything related to you and your pantheon ceased to exist. So I ask you this. How are you even here, alive, and actually quite strong? He asked. His own question, his curiosity got the best of him again. I'll tell you if you answer my question. She needed to know how. Many have come through many eras, but no one knew about her. Not the level of this man knew. It was written in ancient text that I read some time ago. Your story, Ishtar, everything was written on it. He didn't really want to say he actually read it in his house. After reading about Tiamat and the Sumerians, he started to investigate more about this culture in particular and found some legends that didn't appear on his personal library. His interest piqued and he kept reading and searching until he was satisfied. Google really is a blessing in disguise, but they don't need to know about that, he mentally thanked his savior and hoped this would be a really well-kept secret between him and Drake. When I first entered the jungle, I thought about the location in general. After some thinking and the clues on the map that led us here, I found that the city was related to the Mesopotamian period. He started to further explain. The 8-pointed star was a symbol related to you, but that just wasn't enough. The vegetation that seemed far too dense for even a jungle kept my head spinning for some time. But then we saw the bull, a symbol that was used to represent you. He pointed his finger at her. Ishtar was quite amazed by this man's intellect and deductive reasoning, so she kept listening to him. Then I thought the city was built as a sanctuary, as well as an offering to you, so I let it rest. Then I saw more about the city. The cuneiform writing on the surface, all of the buildings only supported theory even more. But then we went to the pyramid and found the pedestals. He stared at her and kept walking around trying to find the spot in case she attacks. Seeing the moving pictures made me think. The first was probably related to the city itself, or rather to one who was created. However, the other picture didn't make sense. He then stopped moving and looked at the woman. A woman destroying a mountain with her fist. It just didn't make sense. He shook his head and smiled. Then I remembered a legend about a goddess that destroyed a mountain just because it was on her way. The legend of you destroying the sacred mountain, Ebith. He looked at Ishtar. And after accidentally grabbing this artifact, we ended inside here. After walking up the staircase, I saw you and joined the pieces together, but I felt I still doubt. So I asked you about the Pantheon. Your answer gave me the information I needed, then the rest was simple deduction. He dismissed the rest of the explanation, but was actually quite proud of it. That's how I figured out who you were. Now answer my question. How are you alive? He asked her. Ishtar was amazed once again by this man. Truly a unique being in the whole world. Fuki and Erica were the same as Ishtar, but Fuki was actually looking at him as if she wanted to eat him. Her heart-shaped eyes didn't help her image at all. Erica looked even more shocked. Her heart was beating wildly inside her chest, and her face was blushing furiously. Maybe Fuki was right. Maybe I actually fell for him. Thinking that, she felt a sense of relief and satisfaction fill her body as if she was already better than before in her life. But her thoughts were stopped by the voice of the goddess. I'll be direct, she told Issei while mentally preparing herself. Belief is where gods come from. Gods are born due to human nature. Humans wish to explain everything in the world, and when something doesn't make sense, they attribute it to the power of gods. She started to explain that belief is what gives the gods their power. The stronger the belief, the stronger the power they will possess. However, their existence a repercussion, she said with a sad voice. If humans stop believing in God, that they thought made the natural phenomenon or that unexplained event occur, then the god will stop gaining power, and if something isn't done, then they will start to decline in strength and slowly dissipate. Her words made Issei widen his eyes in surprise. He never heard about this. Humanity started to evolve, and with that, their thinking changed. My pantheon started to decline in power, and when we figured out what was the reason why, when we tried to make the humans believe us again, it proved to be worthless effort. She was quite sad at the remembrance of that scene. At the time, I already came back from the underworld, and I became a hermit since I no longer saw anyone. I was the first to figure out, and after some years, I cut off my existence from the power of belief that humans gave me. But due to that, my strength stopped growing, and because I wasted far too much time, my power diminished. Her words made Issei think about the current pantheons. I tried to warn them, but it didn't work. It was too late, and there was nothing left for me to do. Slowly, I was the only one of my pantheon left, and was left alone in the world, so I made this place hide, waiting for my end to come. Her words seemed to be the truth, but Issei still had to question. Then the current pantheons? He was interrupted by Ishtar. They learned from our mistakes and actually survived with almost all of their strength. Once the time that the humanity evolved came, few pantheons experienced the same destiny as mine. She finished her explanation and looked at a dragon who seemed to be thinking. Issei was just silent, processing her words. Now, that did explain some things. So that's why the three biblical factions are feared, and why the Hindu gods have that much power. People nowadays still believe in them. He then saw the woman stop her walk and start expelling her aura. He then remembered how main problems of the situation. They were stuck in the place with her. Now, dragon. Sorry to tell you this, but I will kill you. Her voice changed to a flirty one and soon vanished from the spot. Using all of his senses to maximize this, Issei used his darkness and covered his body like usual. Boom! A blow from the hit from the side, and he managed to guard against it. However, it didn't stop him from flying away and crashing against the wall. The wall cracked in some spots, and Issei was still guarding against the hit from the goddess. Damn, she packs a punch. His thoughts started to spin as he decided to remove himself from the wall. Falling down to the ground, Issei noticed how the goddess seemed different than before. She looked more calm and peaceful. Damn, my plan backfired. He never thought that something like this could happen. Dragon, I deeply thank you for what you did. I have never felt better, and to prove my thanks, I'll kill you as quickly and painfully as I can. So to that I swear. The goddess genuinely smiled at him, but they only made him mentally scream. That's not what I wanted. Ha! Drake found the situation quite funny, but didn't dare laugh out loud. Then, in a burst of speed, she disappeared from his eyes and appeared next to him. His instincts kicked in. As soon as he covered his arms, his darkness started to trade blows with her. Bam! 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 Every time they clashed fists, the aftershocks literally shook the entire realm. After minutes passed, both of them were still trading blows, never stopping. Fatigue was visible on Issei, but he knew that if he stopped even for a second, it would spell his death. His team was watching him, hoping that he would create an opportunity for them to attack. The reason they didn't do anything until now was that the goddess was very wary of them. She never left their guard down, and for them to take advantage of, even when Issei landed a couple of blows, she never stopped keeping an eye on them. Sweat formed on Issei's brow. His body was burning. Never-ending combat with the goddess of war exhausts one's body very fast. Every time he tried something, she canceled it by increasing her speed and landing a heavy hit on him, making him cough blood. Or did she just make him lose his concentration by using feints? He was starting to get anxious, desperate, and seeing what he was at a disadvantage, he activated his combo star. And Issei started to increase his offensive speed, using all of his remaining energy. Bang, bang, bang! He wanted to reach a high hit combo as fast as possible, then to increase his odds a bit more, with a quick glance he looked at Erika in the eyes and discreetly asked for her help. Understood. She stopped searching for an opening and sped towards the goddess. In conjunction with Issei, they both fought against her in close quarters. Issei directed a punch at her chest, but she just punched his arm with hers and made him miss the target, breaking his former combo. Erika, who was behind her, watched, and this is as fast as she could, twisted her body and went for a high kick aimed at Ishtar's neck. The momentum force and she generated managed to create a strong air current that was sensed by the goddess. Ishtar felt her and managed to dodge the kick with minimal effort and just sidestepped to the left. Seeing the kick fly past her head, she went for a counterattack. However, Issei stopped in before she could punch Erika and went for an elbow blow aimed at her chest. She widened her eyes and dodged the blow that managed to create an aftershock. When it passed her, she then created some distance between them. Crack! Erika's kick made contact with the ground, but it dented inwards, creating a big crater. The crater that just formed made the goddess lose her balance momentarily. It shaking the opportunity, Issei closed the distance with her. Issei punched her and only managed to block with her forearms, forming an X shape, increasing his speed, his whole upper body to strike at her. Punches and some elbows blows directly connected with her ribs and chest, but nothing was broken. Not even a bruise was seen. Whoosh! Erika jumped from the crater and joined Issei in his attacks. Fighting side by side, both of them had perfect teamwork. Issei would create openings by using veins or just receiving the blows of Ishtar, and then Erika will use her own martial arts and land powerful hits that destroyed the land beneath them, hoping it would damage the goddess. Ishtar, frustrated, grabbed Issei's wrist and then threw a punch right at him. "You're mine!" She pulled Issei towards her and released his wrist. But the momentum made her fly at her. Ishtar collected a lot of golden aura at the same time, and she used to pull him and threw a fierce punch at his face. Erika prepared to do something but was too late. The blow landed on him. Bang! It echoed all through the place, making a loud quake of force. "Partner!" Drake knew that blow did serious damage. Issei was sent flying in a pillar. Whew! And managed to destroy it. His speed barely decreasing, he was sent right towards the wall behind him. Issei was embedded against the wall, and Fuki, that was thinking about the plan to hurt the goddess, was shocked by seeing this. "Issei!" The scream of worry of Fuki managed to make Erika lose concentration for a second. Chance! Ishtar took the opportunity and closed the distance between her and Erika herself. Erika, on the other hand, was startled as a reflex threw a kick aimed at her face. Ishtar smiled and caught the kick, both arms, not planning to let her go. "I won't release you," she told her with emotionless and cold voice. She was planning on doing the same thing as she did to the dragon. Erika was shocked by this, but soon thought of something. "Please don't." She gave her a disturbing smile, managing to astonish her for a brief moment. "This blow is for you," Issei. What happened next was numbing. Using that leg that was caught by the goddess, Erika twisted her body with all of her strength and purposely twisted her leg, making it break into pieces. That movement made her positioning less awkward and corrected her stance for her land to a blow. With the momentum she generated, she passed Ishtar's guard and her right knee she aimed and landed a serious blow on the goddess' right temple. Bang! Ishtar was sent flying at the side, crashing against a pillar that possibly with a broken skull. Landing on the ground, Erika was gruesomely twisted her leg to stand properly. Then with her worry in her eyes, she took a peek where Issei was currently at. Seeing he was standing up and his darkness was healing him, she released a breath of fresh air and filled with worry. A minute later, Issei, the moment that blow hit him, lost consciousness, but as soon as he struck the wall, he gained it back due to his shock. "Damn, my head," he thought as he let his darkness heal him. That blow clearly broke his skull and almost caved his face inwards. "If I didn't use my darkness, then I would have died." The blow was aimed for his swift kill. Nothing more, nothing less. That thought sent a chill down his spine. "I haven't been so close to death in some time, maybe less than a month." He mentally told a joke and tried to calm himself down. "Partner, I think you should use your other ability. She's far too strong to fight in her close quarters. Both you and the vampire are barely keeping up, and that's because you don't let her take the offensive." "You're right. Let's change strategies." He gave his confirmation and waited for the healing to be done. After some seconds, he healed and stood up from his place. Seeing Fuki at the far left, he thought of something. "Fuki, prepare for something that does a lot of damage. Erika and I will buy you some time. After we create a big enough opening, aim for it even if we are at the middle of it, blow it anyway." The face of Fuki changed with a difficult. She nodded her head. "Don't worry, you know how special both of us are. So we have a way to survive. Don't forget who we are." Seeing him like that, Fuki nodded her head. With determination in her eyes, she replied, "I'll take some time, but I'll have something that will destroy the entire palace if needed." Issei smirked at her and nodded his head. "Well, let's buy some time." Then used his darkness and summoned his blades. Rebellion. The 7 blades appeared around him as if they were guarding him. Then he grabbed his favorite curved blades. beating up. He arrived next to Erika, who landed a serious blow on Ishtar. Erika, we need to buy Fuki some time. She has something that she could probably damage her badly with. He told her in a low voice, only the two could hear. Erika curved the edge of her mouth and said, in acceptance. Boom! The pillar of the distance was broken into pieces, and from it the goddess emerged, blood falling from the side of her head. That girl actually hurt me. With a cool head, she looked at the white-haired beauty and smirked. Seeing this will be better than I thought. Time to grow. Time to gear up too. The goddess made a stance and prepared herself. Issei went first. He covered his blades with his hell blades, and he sent 6 of his blades to hopefully create an opening. However, something happened. Ishtar moved his arms in front of her and gathered her aura. It circulated around her, and then his own Hellgate, a golden portal, was opened. Said portal swallowed by the flying blades and closed after. So, I can use it like that. Seeing his distraction literally fly out of the window, he covered his body in maximum amount of darkness and increased his speed to the top. Then his sole remaining blade still covered his flames and slashed at her. Swish! The sound of wind being cut was heard. Ishtar, seeing that he didn't stop his assault, decided to dodge a blow by moving backwards. The blade pressed by her a few centimeters and only cut strands of her hair. It went right by her eyes and down to the floor. However, Issei knew that she would dodge, so the swing of his blade was faint. He smirked and coldly muttered, "Kami Shikigari!" Then the flames of the blade erupted and were launched on the sword with a curved shape. The flames were fired at such a close distance that she couldn't escape the impact. Guess what's back? Cliffhangers. We are stopping right there because your boy's kind of tired of reading for right now. I apologize for the cliffhanger once again, but I also don't regret what I did, so suck it in return. I hope you guys enjoyed my last poll where I asked you which power-up which you would do. Remember, thank you so much for the support. I apologize for stopping right here once again, but in reality, I needed the break because my head is about to explode from reading for an hour straight. Doing it every other day is kind of making me want to kill myself. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I will not say that. Don't ever say that, guys. Thank you so much for the support, man. It's been absolutely amazing. Once again, if you want to be a balance breaker or a limit breaker, the link will be right here. Be the first link in the description below. Thank you so much for the support, man. I cannot thank you guys enough. Like, seriously. What if Goku was in High School DxD? I saw a lot of people in the comment section actually wanting this series to happen, or as well as Goku being betrayed, so I'll definitely get on that as soon as possible after I'm done. Right? What if Issei had Ultra Instinct? Sorry, I had a hiccup. Once again, thank you to all my balance breakers. My voice is a little rusty right now, so let me try it again. Thank you to all my balance breakers. I give it a good shot. But my voice is obviously broken right now from reading for an hour straight. So thank you so much, of course. And once again, thank you to all my balance breakers. There we go. But I appreciate everyone who's hit the like button. Please, let's try to hit 1,000 likes. If you're currently in the premiere right now, go ahead and hit the like button. And that's where we end the stream or the premiere or the video off today. Without further ado, Spartanic Arts DxD out.